Good afternoon. My name is Hayley Bull and I'm Director of International Content Firm 3Vision. I'd like to welcome you and the panelists to the TU Automotive Munich session on in-car entertainment. A topic that was once seen as futuristic on the TU conference agenda is now very, very relevant. Connectivity is already here and so is entertainment. There are examples of integrated audio and video services in the market today, as well as bespoke content packages driving in-car data plans. No pun intended there. Still, the area of in-car entertainment is subject to a lot of debate about the shape it's going to take. Automaker branded services versus Google and Apple solutions versus anything in between. I'm delighted to be joined by the companies shaping this space and to learn further about their views and experiences on entertainment in vehicles. So let's get started. The first part of this session is about what automakers need to know. So a good place to start is about what consumers want in terms of their in-vehicle experience. Scott, I believe you've done some consumer research at Ford. Is there anything that you can share and your thoughts on this area?
Thank you, Hayley. Yeah, Scott Lyon. So I head up tech partnerships for the European team here at Ford. I actually have a background in entertainment. Actually, started my career at MTV. So, looking from then to where we are now is obviously a massive change in terms of content and obviously the distribution of content. We definitely, of course, have explored what do we believe customers want. We've tested a couple of things with customers. The funny thing is customers really don't know what they want in vehicle. They obviously can bring their smartphones in today. They can consume lots and lots of different content through CarPlay or Android Auto. And so frankly, they're really reasonably well served. I think what we're looking for here is looking at some of the new use cases. So for example, charging. You're sitting there charging, perhaps you're in the middle of nowhere. What are you going to do to kind of waste the time? Obviously, customers are now looking for perhaps games or other types of things that their vehicle can actually deliver. The one thing that we're really focused on now is really delivering kind of tailor-made content that really taps and takes advantage of some of the connectivity experiences that the vehicle itself can deliver. So not necessarily replicating what the smartphone does, because why should we do that? But actually delivering really unique and kind of push versus pull experiences, which you and I have certainly talked about a couple of times before.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, of course, in-car is a very unique environment. Gereon, is there anything that you or Xperi are doing in this space to make the experience bespoke to the driver and the passengers?
Yes, absolutely, Hayley. Thank you for the question. My name is Joachim. I'm the Vice President for Automotive Sales and Strategy in the EMEA region for Xperi. I'm focusing on delivering extraordinary experience for in-car infotainment and safety applications. So usually OEM like Ford come to me if they want to make the drive safer by avoiding unintended driver behavior, or if they want to make the ride more enjoyable by adding the latest infotainment media or metadata options. And that's part of the discussion that we have today. For those who don't know, to Xperi belongs HD radio technology. That's the digital radio standard for North America. And if you look through the research, the most dominant media listened in the vehicle is radio. There's plenty of other options. I totally agree, but radio is what people most listen to in the car. I think we shouldn't forget about it, but there's also reality, which is streaming, internet access in the vehicle. So the question is, what services can be built around the linear media that's being out there, like radio? Can you add it on with additional features? Can you bring in, let's call it in lyrics? Can you bring in events? Can you bring in the latest metadata with the images? I think these are all important topics that we should discuss on when we focus on the discussion today.
Yeah, absolutely. And Ted, you have a fascinating job title at Paramount, and of course, you're about video. What do you see for in-car content?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's a really interesting area of exploration. So yes, I do have an interesting job at the movie studio and at the broader entertainment entity, ViacomCBS, which is our parent organization. And my job is to study the future of how everything relates to entertainment. So new devices to consume it, how the customer journey is altering and changing. And automotive is an area of high interest to me. And I think, you could track this all the way back, and Gereon mentioned it. I think from the first time someone realized they should put a radio inside a car, the world was changed, right? And the car became a mobile entertainment device, albeit audio. In the current iteration of this, starting marching forward 2020 and beyond, the car has become an AV platform, right? And I think maybe the most interesting and sparky part of the discussion is the push and pull of the ubiquitous interfaces that we are used to from all of our other entertainment portals, right? That live on some sort of common user interface, iOS or Android in the mobile world, and Windows or Mac iOS in the desktop world. And how do customers want that to translate into their automotive journey? And are they more interested in a more custom, more bespoke version of software, or are they more interested in just taking what they have from their home environment and their mobile environment and seeing it show up in their car environment, which becomes a bit of an economic challenge to the car manufacturers, right? Because they're all looking for differentiation, and what the mobile providers are looking for is less differentiation. So they want to see Android show up in your car. They want to see Apple CarPlay show up in your car. And I think it's a battle that I think, if you kind of think how's this movie going to play out, I think we sort of know how it's going to end. The edge cases will be these custom, unique sort of interfaces that a small amount of people will want and use. But the mass market cases will be the enormous force of the ubiquitous interface, whether you're living in the Android iOS system or the iOS system, and that seems to be what people do.
Yeah, Ash, what are your customers, your automaker clients asking you for? Is it just about bringing existing streaming services into the in-car environment by linking up their smartphone, for example?
So there are a number of things going on. First of all, depend which type of OEMs we are talking, premium or a passenger car. For passenger car premium, they want maximum connectivity with minimum cost and less complexity. And for them, projection makes much better viable solution. Projection apps from mobile phone to the infotainment screen. Also, when we talk about the premium automotive, today, Android Auto and CarPlay, 500 car models on the road and millions of vehicles already. So it's a consumer which is asking. It's not the OEM which wanted to offer that in the first place. So now again, do OEM wants to satisfy their customers, or they want to produce a unique feature which very difficult to learn, because as a habitual, we want to use things which we've been using, which is mobile phone, interface, apps, or we want to keep creating a unique feature in order to create value. Or other option, whatever is the coming on projection, can we make it safer? For example, when Bluetooth came in, hands-free was important because you can get fined while using phone in the car. So that was a good initiative from OEMs to put a hands-free. Then the maps keep coming in. People start using mobile phone and hanging their phones on the car dashboard. Again, lot of destruction, lot of safety issues. You are not happy. So then OEMs start putting maps into information system. Then there is a fine keep coming. So you can't stop using your mobile phone. It's a companion which is 24/7 with you. Your content is with you. You want to use same content wherever you go. Music you want to play on a smart speaker or a smart car. navigation, you want to use it for point of interest while walking or while in the car. So why don't automotive would look into the ways so projection becomes more viable solution? And the important aspect is driver safety and less distraction. So there is a huge initiative going on. Whatever apps from Huawei point of view we're trying to bring on board for in-vehicle use, it's paramount for us. It has to be the templates, the less driver distraction. The interaction should be through smart voice, touch, and also gesture. So we are looking at different surveys and different user aspect for driver safety. So for us, car user is the focus point.
Yeah. Okay. But how much is the make or model of a car important in the experience and the type of content that will be offered? Ivan, what do your clients say to you about that?
So one interesting example, let's say music. So we download music from cloud, and it has a different audio quality based on the bit rates and so on and so forth. If your car has a low-end head unit with music system, you will not hear a good experience of music in the car. But the same premium cars who has a better infotainment system in terms of music, speakers, and amplifiers, they had a better experience. But from a projection point of view, what we could do for low-end head units, as we are transferring low bitrate data. And the same when it's a high-end head unit, we are actually transferring raw audio stream so they can do the mixing. So we as a projection even changing based on the model of the car, based on what is hardware in the car. It's not only simple projection solution.
Yeah. Ivan, what would you like to add about the type of content that you're seeing being requested?
So thanks, Haile. So I think we've seen it it really depends on the OEM and even sometimes for the vehicle/geography. So and it's kind of going through the traditional line. So you have certain OEMs who put a very big emphasis on the car customized experience, and they would go very like the extra line to make the car the center of the infotainment. Then you also have different OEMs, or even maybe for different demographics, who basically just want the users to plug their phone and use it as they would use it anywhere else. So we've seen both. This is, and to be honest, I don't even think there is an easy winner there. It really depends on who you ask, and depends on the OEM make, on the target market. So we're happy to serve both. And when it comes to services, this evolved. And at the beginning, of course, you had pure music services that I call this the first generation. And now we are already in a second generation where we already have basically the projects with VOD, with streaming video. Of course, this is yet to come in a widespread deployment, mainly mirroring the cellular network availability, but it's already a reality in some markets. And I think what Scott was saying at the beginning, if you are OEM that actually wants to make the car the center, then it is you who need to educate the consumer, because mostly people don't even expect the car to be able to do things like, oh, it can play my premium service, or it can play my customized videos when I'm charging it. This needs to be discoverable, and people are not expecting it today. Maybe in 10 years, they'll be, of course you have it, but today this would be a novelty. So it's also a nice challenge to make it accessible so people don't see it as a burden to learn. It has to be completely frictionless, activated by voice, predicting what you're doing, not endangering, of course, the drive. So it's much more complicated compared to maybe a TV set where, nobody's driving. But it makes it even more so interesting to do.
Yeah, absolutely. Gereon, I recall you had some interesting case studies that you were working on about how you were making the experience really tailored to in-car. I recall about offering content for the duration that charging was on NEV, for example.
Yes, I'm not saying we're doing this. I said that's how the future can look like, right? And again, I'm going back here. I'm coming from the linear media, which I think radio is most important. I think everyone wants to stream, probably ultimately at one point. We also need to ask the questions, is the server ready to support it, right? If everyone moves over to streaming, probably everything collapses. And we see this very often in the US, where we have a hurricane coming through, that server and cell phone network collapse, right? So radio still has a major relevance. But I think we need to make it more centric, more exciting to use these medias. And now to Scott's points, probably earlier on, where do you want to go, right? I think at the moment we know radio. Now we are through a transition over the following years to add more and more on top of it. It's streaming. What are you going to stream? I think you start off with streaming audio first, right? Just because of the data bandwidth that's going to be available. And then in a few years further down, I'm looking at TED, we're probably talking about the video on demand that's coming into the car, right? So there's a transition over time, and I think we need to be ready to make this transition happening. We also need the support from the OEM to be ready for paying for it, right? Because obviously those implementation comes with a dollar sign at it, and the OEM needs to be ready in order to pay for it, or at the end, the consumer. And then when you have all the content available in the car, let's take this years out, we have autonomous cars that are driving around, you have audio, you have video in the car, you have a whole lot of content. So what should the experience be like? I think key is, how do you discover, how do you search for the content? Because you don't want to have the experience that you have at home currently, where you're looking for content, you're searching 30 minutes on your sofa, trying to find the right movie to watch, and then you say, well, it's so late, I go to bed anyhow, right? You don't want to have the experience, neither at home nor in the car. So I think that's where the metadata plays an important role, the search and discovery, because you want to find the content quickly, and then you want to listen, enjoy the content that you discovered for your personal recommendation on top of it. So ultimately, you want to have content that's recommended, A, for your interest, or for the purpose, charging. You know, if you charge for 30 minutes, the OEM usually knows how long the charging time is, whatever it is. You can tailor your content particularly for that purpose. And I think that's what we're going to see in the future.
Ted, how are Viacom CBS looking at this space? Clearly, you've got what you can do now, which to a certain extent is still limited because there are drivers driving the car. But what happens when the car becomes autonomous? What are the possibilities for entertainment and kind of incredible creative experiences in car?
Yeah, it's a big area of study for me personally, and a small task force across Viacom CBS that I work with. And I guess I would say now I'm a little bit of an odd case. I live in California normally. I'm not there now, but I live in California normally. And I drive an electric car. I drive a Tesla that has an entertainment suite in it. And I'm already seeing my behavior, my charging behavior on road trips in normal times, because now we're not driving all that much these days, but in normal times when we used to drive quite a bit, when I need to charge the car, I already have a selection of various OTT providers, from all the big name brand ones to some smaller ones, that I can pop on a 20-minute show, a 30-minute show, watch part of a show that I wanted to catch up on, and the screen is just as good, if not better, than any other screen in my world, right? In a Tesla. The Tesla already has autonomous driving, which I do. I let the car self-drive. As it stands today, you know, we're not at level 5, level 6, that you are completely hands-off and you essentially can mirror the behavior of other mass transit as an entertainment sort of pod. But we're getting close to that, right? And certainly for stories of people cheating and finding ways around it, and watching Netflix while the car is driving itself, which clearly we recommend. But in the next few years, and it's really not a very long journey to see this, right? In the next few years, you're going to see autonomous driving becomes more mainstream, and you're going to see the ability of the car entertainment concept to mirror the airplane entertainment concept. So we, as a large entertainment environment, broadcaster and deliverer of entertainment, we already have a business around delivering premium entertainment to airplane screens, right? And now to your personal screen that you take on the airplane. So you can extrapolate that in the relatively near future to when you don't have to drive the car, the car can be an entertainment platform, and the screens themselves will just get bigger and bigger and bigger and more exotic, to the point that the entire windshield, which is a nice piece of real estate, roughly the size of your home TV, can start to become your entertainment platform. We showed some futuristic stuff, I guess it's now 2 years ago at CES. Maybe it's still a year. Time-space continuum with the pandemic has lost all sort of relevance to me. We had an entertainment partnership with a emerging car company called Byton, and we were on stage with Byton demonstrating this across the entire front of the car screen. And Viacom, CBS, Paramount was their first entertainment partner. We showed movies, we showed trailers, we showed TV shows, and we showed that today this is while the car is stopped, while the car is parked, while you're charging the car. Tomorrow, this will be while the car is driving. You'll be able to. So this is the evolution of radio, as it were, right? We still had to drive the car ourselves. We can use our ears. Now we don't have to drive the car ourselves. We can use our ears and our eyes. And advanced projection techniques are starting to appear as wearable devices that will start to link and connect to the car, so that you can have essentially a large theatrical style experience or a full 360 experience. There's a lot of this experimentation going on. So while I talk very specifically about all of the deals that we are engaged in for obvious reasons, you can extrapolate that anybody that's building a car like the car I drive or other brands that do this are absolutely looking at us and other movie studios and other entertainment, conglomerates, giants, to partner with them as the next logical platform. People spend a lot of time in their cars in normal times. And when we get back to normal times, people will likely spend a lot more time in their cars again. So it's a business and a creative opportunity for us. Wow.
Scott, are you planning for a future where your cars become entertainment pods?
Yeah, I mean, I don't disagree with anything that Ted has said. I have also tried out driving a Tesla, and certainly the experience is great. I think the key thing here that we're trying to figure out is what exactly, let's take, for example, in all of our houses today, we're really used to this kind of on-demand experience. I want to watch The Crown and I want to watch it now at 3 o'clock in the morning, or I want to listen to music on Spotify, or I want this or that. I order something on Amazon and it's here the next day, or even later in that same day here in Berlin. So in effect, our customers are really used to certain types of learned experiences now. And actually, when you get in the vehicle, historically, and I'm a big fan of radio, obviously radio, you need to kind of wait until certain things happen. Obviously, there may be certain services that you can take advantage of that can give you some on-demand experiences. But I think what we're trying to think about here is, what can we deliver to our customers in as close to an on-demand way as possible that allows them to identify the content that they want, that's very tailored for them, and also allows them to consume new types of content or services that they don't use outside of the vehicle. So let me give you an example. Let's say, this is one of my favorite examples, that you're on a road trip. Let's say you're going to spend a lot more time in your vehicle for a period of a week with your family in normal times. And obviously you would like to be able to consume different content than you would normally consume if you were just using your vehicle to commute from your office to your home every day. And so we should be able to offer content and also a commercial model that's wrapped around that allows our customers to be able to graze, to be able to, purchase or subscribe to content for various different periods of time, that journey type that they're going for. And I think we really are thinking more about, bringing these things to our customers, as opposed to trying to kind of fit existing models into the vehicle form factor, right? So the vehicle, frankly, is a very unique space, very confined space. And we think that if we're really smart about how we deliver that content, and I'm not saying that, and I think it was mentioned earlier, all about mirroring from your smartphone. I'm a fan of mirroring from your smartphone, so don't get me wrong. I think there needs to be a combination of content that comes from your smartphone, for sure, and then obviously content and experiences and services that are delivered from the vehicle itself. And you have this combination of both. It's not one or the other. So I don't think we will be in a world where we're completely offload everything to the smartphone.
Yeah. So you're suggesting that the car manufacturer, certainly in Ford's perspective, will have some level of curation in what comes into that platform, whether it's tailing content to duration, controlling the experience.
Well, these are so this is something that I'm really spending a lot of time on with my my colleagues internally, is that we really want to work very differently with companies. So we want to work very differently with, content companies, brands that actually want to get into the vehicle. So really trying to make sure that we're not just taking something and shoving it into the vehicle, that we're actually collaborating in such a way that this experience takes full advantage of everything that the vehicle has to offer, including, of course, perhaps a rethink on some of the commercial models and how that content and those commercial models surface to customers. So it is really a different approach, I think, that we're trying to take, and we're experimenting with that now with a couple of partners. So we're hoping that you will see the light of that at some point in the near future.
Yeah, I can't wait.
What Scott is mentioning is we are absolutely doing that. We find that building into this can't just be by accident. You have to kind of start to understand the personalities of each vehicle, the personalities of the people that are crafting that vehicle, and the kind of entertainment sort of suite that they want. So we're working actively with 5 car manufacturers right now, just off the top of my head, probably more, that are looking at how do we fit our brand, our suite of entertainment, and sort of cross-connect that journey from the house to the car, back to the mobile, back to the house. It's pretty interesting.
So that leads us on really nicely, Ted, thank you, into the next part of the webinar, which is looking at how we create partnerships. And the first part of this question was going to be, how do we entice content owners to come on board? But it seems like you guys are already on board to a certain extent.
You're already very enticed, and we understand how massive the opportunity is, right?
Yeah.
Like a subset of that, something that I'm looking at, and I'm curious from the other group in the panel, I wonder if I'm an edge case, because I actually am like a pre-downloader. I like to download stuff on my phone because I can't always rely on the network. Sometimes I'm traveling internationally and I don't know, how, and I'm on long plane flights, but I'm also on long car rides. So I'm a big podcast guy, right? So I'll download 10 podcasts while I'm on my home network or my 4G or now my 5G with this one, right? So now the data is getting even faster. And I'll have them ready to go. So if I'm in dead spots or whatever, it's not a problem. I'm also starting to do that with video content, right? That just like when I get on a plane, I tend to download a couple of movies and a bunch of TV shows, even though I know that in the plane seat I'll have, onboard entertainment. I actually just kind of want to know that I've got my own, right? And I'm curious if you guys are seeing from a customer perspective that that's still an edge case, and most people are just kind of too lazy to do that, and they just expect it to be there when it's there, or they're more like me and they want to pre-prepare for that journey.
Who would like to answer, Ted?
Well, I think Ted is right. I would probably say that as an educated consumer, that definitely knows when you're trying to watch something on a high-speed train or something, or some experience where you don't have connectivity, that you've obviously got to kind of think ahead about downloading certain types of content. And I do think that that brings up an interesting point about pre-preparing certain, or curating your own experience and bringing that into the vehicle, right? So obviously not divorcing this experience of what you have at home or what you have in your office, and obviously then getting into the vehicle and there's no connection between the two. I think what I really love is what, for example, Spotify have done, which is really this interplay, this interchangeable experience between I can control my, my music from my tablet on my phone to my paired here. This experience is really where it's really bringing it to where the consumers are. And I do believe that connectivity is going to be a huge concern moving forward, especially when you're really relying on connectivity to deliver so much of the experience, right? So I think that this intelligent downloading, caching, other types of things is absolutely going to be paramount to how we, deliver a well-rounded experience that's consistent, because I think that would really be quite irritating when customers are constantly being interrupted with their content while they're in some location.
Yeah. Okay.
But
sorry.
I don't know if I can fully agree to it, because I think it's about the ease of how easy you can use, right, and find the content into the vehicle. I think people don't want to prepare prior to ride and make sure that they have the right content on the device or in the car in order to consume it on the ride. I think if you really look out there in the future, this should be an in-vehicle experience. And I think that's where people, OEMs, can significantly differentiate. Voice, we talked about it before, right? VNLU, a contextual search, the content you're looking for and discover. This should be done smartly by smart technologies in the back, providing you the content that you're looking for. I think this should be taken away actually from the driver, the owner, or the passenger in the car in order to do this ahead of the trip. I think this is not a good experience.
Yeah, but is it? But just question: is it? I think the thing that we need to think about here is it's not an either or, right? And I don't think that it's it's one way or the other. I think that there are certainly always going to be different types of consumers who want to do that preparation, who want to be able to immediately on the way go with what they've prepared. Frankly, I'm like that, but I know friends that could care less and just want to discover and off they go. So I think we need to make sure that we're not delivering one experience that is only catering towards one type of customer. I do think that we need to make sure that we can cater to as many different experiences for consumption as possible, making sure that it isn't complex. I think that's the key thing. If it's too complex, it won't work, which is what historically, unfortunately, has been the case, I think, within the automotive landscape when it comes to IVI systems.
Would you all,
if I may add something from a technology side,
please.
It's great. I mean, and the idea to predict what the consumer is going to do is awesome, and we should all strive to that. However, there is additional level of, I would say, complexity or challenges in the car. The connectivity, as Scott mentioned, it's not always guaranteed to be there, and also it costs money. So if I want, for example, if we're talking about a video service, so we're talking about movies, TV shows, I can't just, as a software component, I can't just assume I will download or pre-download a couple of gigabytes of data to make the consumer happy, unless the network is non-metered. So you have to take all of these things into account, which I think it definitely belongs in the software. So as far as I can release somebody from doing that, I would be happy to do so. However, as I would agree with Scott, there will always be type of a customer who likes to do it on their own and they have their own style. For example, I'm doing this when I'm flying. I know I'm going on board on the plane. I'm going to pre-download my Netflix stuff because, well, I know I'm going to be offline in the plane. Not necessarily with the car, but I'm sure there will be people who go on a long trip and they want to really do it on their own. So I would not differentiate. That should work for every type of the customer. It's just that the car is such a unique device that it has a couple of other things to solve to make it that seamless. But on the other hand, it offers some unique advantages, like the Byton case. The car is a high-end entertainment device, actually. So you don't have that in a bus. You don't have that in a plane because you have a huge screen. You can crank the volume up. You can't do that in a public transport. So there are much more opportunities to have premium infotainment, but they come at the price of there are a couple of things that you need to take care about in order to make it seamless for the consumer.
So I think I just want to comment on the TED. He mentioned about the growing need of entertainment going forward, especially in autonomous era. and also EV when parking. So Ted, I think you know already there is a fifth screen revolution coming, and that's all about having more screen in the car, whether it's AR, VR, or different way of projecting more personalized content. So that's a very good plus. Hence, even in the projection solution I will talk about a little bit that it's not purely projection solution. Within projection, we are already targeting now more than 40 screens in the car, even in the front, not in the back rear seat entertainment. And this is already coming a lot of requirement that there will be more than one screen, cluster, passenger side, and the middle screen. This 3 is obvious. And so the projection solution itself has to be able to project different apps or different screens on different content on different screens. That's the first part. Second, about the projection solution. As I think Scott did touch upon that about the Spotify model. So before, when projection came in the TV era, even from phone to TV, it was very horrible experience. But it's still, people were trying. And then what was happening when you project YouTube video on a TV, the content and everything and was going through in a projection mode, and it was not a good experience. Then projection mode moved to a projection plus control plus personalization. So today you can project or cast your screen from phone to TV or YouTube, but then YouTube is picking content directly from TV connection, not necessarily from the phone connection. So these kind of projection evolution will also happen in the in-car projection mode. And then what is important about having phone as your personalized device, your content, it can recommend your personalized content as well, because it is recording more, because it's being your companion more time than you are in the car. And the third point I would like to make about the partnership between OEMs and the mobile phone and the content. That has to grow, because some contents comes as a trial. For example, you can't store Spotify trial or non-subscribe version allows you to stream. It can't store in local phone. So there will be content like that. So you need a partnership where you have a possibility that you can't only project local content from phone to the car, but also have some possibility where you can stream using phone data, as other mentioned before, that the data contract, who will pay for that? You pay subscription for a service, but then the data. So there are a lot of different angles, and end of the day, it's a consumer who is going to enjoy it, but he's the one who is going to pay for it. So that's why the focus is the consumer for OEM perspective and from our perspective as well. So that's my few points around the projection. So projection will evolve more into not only projection, but personalized of data, control of vehicle personalization, like you are a driver, you have your personalized setting for the car, your LED lights, your air conditioning setting, your route setting, your steering and the car depend on the model. So that all is in your phone. So that is not a projection, it's becoming more control and personalization. So phone use will increase definitely, but of course there need to be a balance.
Yeah, thank you for raising the money point, Ash. Because I think that's probably interesting to most people, is how do we commercialize all of this? And in my experience of dealing with automakers and content owners and the technology companies, there does seem to be a real communication problem between how each of those likes to work. I mean, the studios have their own models of making money. I think the automakers, to a certain extent, are quite scared about some of those models. How important is it to have companies that can sit between the two, or is there going to be more of a direct relationship where these two come together themselves and work it out?
So,
well, I can answer the question if you want to. To me, if you look at the sheer amount of OEMs that are being out there and the content companies, I think if every OEM wants to build its own solution, it's going to be very complex, and it's not necessarily the center of expertise, right, to doing the content relationships. We as Xperi, we have a lot of experience with the content owners, with the labels and the studios, with all the business that we have around the world. We just launched a product which is called the Dts Connected Radio, which brings additional metadata around broadcast radio into the vehicles. The service is available across 60 countries. And we're talking here about the images, lyrics, events, and much more around it. It's tremendously complicated to put all this in place for each individual country, right? You need to have the rights, you need to have the implementation, you need to ensure quality of service, you need to have the uptime, you need to make sure that you have a content moderation system in there, because there's some content out there which is okay that you can show in Europe, but then if you look at other parts, call it the US or elsewhere in the world, where you have explicit content that you cannot show, but you could show in Europe. I think this is very complex. It's very challenging. It's taking a lot of time. And I think if a company like Xperi does it, actually, you can leverage the economies of scale, right? And then I think each OEM still has a possibility to, you know, look at what they want to offer into the vehicle, but then also brand it according to their OEM requirements. Because I personally a fan of branded, OEM branded HMIs. I think this is giving the ultimate touch to it. I like the Fiesta, but if I'm having a Fiesta at home and an S-Class, I don't want to have them the same HMI, right? I want to see the differentiation between the both, because both stand for something different. Both are good cars, but obviously not in the same segment, right? So I think that's the reason why I think the content ownership is very important, but it should be done by, let's call it an intermediary.
Ivan, same thoughts for you about having an intermediary involved and the branded experience being very important for an OEM?
I think, yeah, I absolutely agree that the branding is important for the OEM, but one thing in my personal experience so far, OEMs are selling cars. This is their business, and they're not in business of content partnerships. They're not in business of, reporting, content usage across geographies. And so far, the feedback I'm having is that if they can avoid that, they would very much like to do so, because they would like to focus on their core business. And so I think moving forward also with additional types of content like games, also radio, of course, radio, as it becomes richer, as Gereon was saying, like with images, with metadata, not only has rights, it has distribution restrictions, video, of course, as always, music, of course, then you have lyrics, which have as I don't know if everybody knows, but the lyrics are sometimes more expensive than the song, and things like that. This is a business of its own, and OEMs are probably appreciate very much if there is somebody in between taking care of these things. Nevertheless, marketing and branding is very important, but the rest, I would say, the rest of the stuff, if there is an expert for that, they are of course appreciating it.
So I would like to add on the relationship dynamics changing in OEM industry, which I think are quite apparent as well. For example, there was a time only classical tier 1 vendors will interact with OEMs, but today you can see IBM, Microsoft, Google interacting with OEMs for their cloud solution, for example. It's a very different relationship. They were never thinking to talk to this IT big companies before. Same going for EE architecture. There was a time, ECU were made by some 3-4 top tier ones, and that's it. But today, company interacting directly with NVIDIA, NXP, and all Intel directly. And same going with the apps. So in certain cases, OEMs are directly interacting with the app providers as well, cutting the middleman. So the dynamics is changing, and what it's bringing customization, with Ivan mentioned about branding and personalization. Yes, that's pretty much the focus, because when you see the existing projection solutions, there is no, once you do the projection with Android Auto or CarPlay, all the cars look the same, and HMI control doesn't change, and that is becoming a big when it comes to branding. So the projection solution company has to adopt that sort of branding, and what we have done at Huawei with HiCar, especially taking the OEM's apps, we are building apps for them, And then the projection mode, the look and feel of HMI interface looks the same as they have without the projection. So we are working very closely in partnership with OEM. So that's the dynamic is changing as well.
I think
Ted, does it matter to you if you have a direct relationship with an OEM or you work through someone else?
I think it's a combination of both. I think all paths are relevant, and the market is so humongous that you wouldn't deny the fact that there are going to be really smart connectors that are going to find, they're essentially agents of help, right? I mean, an automotive manufacturer is very different than an entertainment provider, so you sometimes need to go between. Although I do find that, at least in our case, working directly with the auto manufacturers, like a lot of the larger entertainment companies, we both have the wherewithal that have divisions that have enough sophistication around this that we can do both. And I think we'll continue to do both. I think what's a really interesting area that you're discussing is the perception of premium and how that has changed generation to generation, right? So from a personal experience standpoint, and also just studying the industry segments, the idea of having this customized, like, special navigation system for your Lexus or your BMW or all the, it's actually a vestige of the past. It has now caused for a premium customer when they don't have their comfortable interface where they want it, which is a point of frustration for auto manufacturers, right? Because auto manufacturers need differentiation points, right? And to the point that you're making, a low-end economy car should have a different experience than a high-end luxury car with a $100,000 price delta. But there's a weird psychology dynamic of a modern premium customer that if they're an Apple ecosystem person, they want to bring that Apple ecosystem into their luxury car. They don't want to have this weird navigation system, albeit probably very high end, but it's a different interface and they don't want to learn it. It's troublesome, right? So for me, we used to have a Lexus and then a couple of the Teslas. And I still have frustration with all these things because I'm an Apple ecosystem person. And Tesla, while it's very good and it's it has an underpinnings of Android, it's an Android kernel, so it's actually fine. I would love it if my Tesla had CarPlay because it just extends my Mac interface to my Automotive, right? The Lexus was even worse because while it's a really premium, very expensive car, it wants to continue to try and force you using their stuff, right? And their little twist dials and all these things. And Mercedes and Audi and a few others kind of go that way. And I get it. I understand why they're trying to do it. But I think it flies in the face of what a modern premium customer wants. What a modern premium customer actually wants is they want what the mid-level customer has, which is the easiest connection to their phone. So you see some of the high-end auto manufacturers, I think, although Audi were first to adopt CarPlay and Android Auto, everyone is doing it. Mercedes.
Yes.
They'll still give you the other one in the background if you want it, but at the end of the day, most people don't want it. They don't want that level of granular, like, okay, now I got to remember this button, sort of the same dynamic we all have. I'm just wondering, at the end of the day, we all now use 10 different video chat clients to do this stuff, right? And all the buttons are slightly different, they're all in a different place, the mute buttons in a different place. And what we're really looking for is some unification, right?
Yes.
And I think premium and unification sometimes don't do this well together, right? So the trick for the auto manufacturers and the third-party integrators is to try and figure out how to make it feel premium while still making it ridiculous. That's a consistent thing.
I think the word is here. What we are looking is what we know already. So we want to look same button, same sort of interface into the car.
Correct.
And that's what the whole point is about, giving this, providing your phone content into the car, whether it is a projection or the control or metadata for personalization. And that makes much more powerful offering for a consumer point of view.
Yeah, so I think the premium experience will be less about the interface and more about the physical screen setup and how the cocooning of this is a $30,000 car and this is a $100,000 car. You're starting to see that with Mercedes, I would say. They're starting to like put iPad style interfaces into the car. I think Tesla was certainly the most advanced, right? They're like, what people really want is an iPad in the car. So what do? They stuck an iPad in the car, right? And there's an efficiency, there's a cost metrics. And talking to some of my other like Tesla Club people, there's an envy for those that have the first gen Tesla to the new Tesla because they like the simpler interface. Like, even though that's the lower end interface, the first Tesla had the sort of vertical iPad and the more traditional display in the dashboard. And a lot of people are just like, that's too old school for me. I want the modern one, right? So it'll be interesting to see what the next Tesla, how they move up scale with that and downscale at the same time.
Yeah, absolutely. So unfortunately, we're coming to the end of the session. We've got a few minutes left. I know that we could continue talking about this for the rest of the afternoon and evening, but I think it might be a nice idea to end this session with your 30-second opinion on what the in-car entertainment experience will look like in 5 years' time, and how long it's going to be before we see mainstream adoption of entertainment in cars. So if you can do that in 30 seconds, that will be superb. Ivan?
Yeah, so I think in 5 years we'll be watching TV shows and movies in the car for sure, and we'll have personalized content for the cars as for charging, as for shoulder rides. So there will be a new short form format optimized for that experience. And I think moving forward in the next few years, the challenge is exactly going to be to first to make the content service providers and the OEMs work together, because it's a different environment. It's not the volume of your CE devices, it's not the volume of mobile phones, but nevertheless, it's extremely interesting with its own specifics. And once this is following through intelligent tech, making sure it's cool and smart and understanding end user, and then it will succeed.
Simple. Gereon?
Yeah, I echo what Ivan said. Actually, probably within the next 5 years, we see more audio content coming into the car and have platform recommendations across audio. We see some video coming into the car probably in the next 5 years too, but not to the level that we're talking about mass adoption yet. But I think that we're going to see this transition taking over time. But I also be realistic. I believe that radio, and we are a radio company, I think radio is going to be dominant for the next couple of years in the car.
Thank you. Scott?
Well, I would say not much to add, frankly, but I was, obviously the things that you would expect: audio, video, gaming, lots of services, very integrated and personalized, I think, is key. And obviously really catering to the various different use cases that customers have while they're driving in the vehicle, whether it be charging, road trips, commuting, etc. So, we want to help deliver all that content and partner up where needed.
Super. Ash?
Yeah, so one thing, I agree what others have said already, but I would like to add one thing. More connectivity is coming, more content through the mobile or smartphone we are talking. But same time, don't forget about the regulation bodies. There is a new regulation coming around data security, privacy, driver distraction, which was not before 5 years ago, because they start seeing the more use of mobile phone and connectivity, and it has posed a different challenge for the vehicle industry. And so I'm working on some of the regulatory interviews, but the same point is that this will be impacted by, so the experience what you have exactly as a user on a mobile phone will definitely not be the same for in-vehicle mobile phone use.
Yeah.
So there is a regulatory influence on that, and it's coming soon.
We can't forget that. And Ted, what exciting content experiences have we got coming to us?
Yeah, well, as you might imagine, the next 5 years is of high interest to me, right? So I have lots of thoughts on that. I'll try to distill them down. First is that I think every major car manufacturer will have a fleet of EV vehicles. Every major car manufacturer will have highly advanced screens and screen options in their vehicles. Every major car manufacturer will start to experiment. It won't be mainstream in the next 5 years, but will start to experiment with what we call AirTouch and the ability to just see an overlay on the windshield that you can touch. Every major car manufacturer will have a choice between pure driving, first level autonomy, and full autonomy, and concepts where the windshield will change its opacity based on the style of driving you're doing or the type of road that you're on, where you have to pay more attention or less attention. So the car itself, or the vehicle, whatever that style of vehicle is, will become some sort of like multi-tiered modified theatrical experience where you'll be able to have a sort of light touch experience, a medium touch television style experience, a full touch theatrical style experience. You're also going to have a lot more interactivity, and you're going to also have a lot more voice control, which you're already starting to see being advertised and promoted in today's cars for the most, like the 2021, 2022 models. They're all incorporating some of the voice tech from a lot of tech companies. You're going to see that grow by leaps and bounds. Almost everything you can do from the car, you can say, you know, Mustang, do this, Mustang, do this, and it will do it for you, just like your smartphone does.
Oh, that sounds incredibly exciting. And I will see you all in 5 years' time, and we can discuss your projections and see what's happened. It's been a pleasure speaking to you all. Thank you so much. And there's going to be a live Q&A now shortly, so stay tuned, and we're all very happy to take your questions. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Great. Well, it's good to have everyone here to now take part in the live question and answer session. I've been scrolling through the questions as they've come in, and there's some great ones there. There's been a couple around business models and how do we actually monetize content, and a specific reference to tolls. Is it going to be the consumer that's going to be paying for this content? Scott, what are your thoughts around how we subsidize the cost of content in cars?
Thank you, Haley. Yeah, so I mean, there are a number of different ways here that this can be, I guess, approached. Obviously, I think as the question infers, lots of people do not want to pay twice for the same subscription, but I think people do need to recognize that the data that will deliver this content into vehicle does need to be paid for in some way, shape, or form, or subsidized. So what we're looking at here is obviously we want to make sure that people can bring in their own subscriptions if you've got Spotify or Amazon Music Unlimited or perhaps Netflix to access that content. But there may be ways in terms of how we strike deals with some of those partners that may bring on new. They're very interested in bringing on new subscriptions. So frankly, what I've heard a number of times from different companies that I've spoken to is that they want to drive adoption because they look at the vehicle as perhaps a new way of getting new customers. And so they may be open to partially or potentially at whole subsidizing the data to power some of those experiences, at least for a period of time, to kind of attract that customer to say, actually, I really like this. It's the old Shazam model from the UK, right? 2580. I really love this, and obviously I should pay for it as you get hooked on it. So there are different ways that we're kind of exploring that, but I think the vehicle fortunately actually delivers a very, very new use case for some of these folks that may attract new customers to their individual platforms.
Yeah, interesting. And I guess there's a role there for those that are providing the data plans as well.
Well, of course. I mean, those companies, whether it be AT&T, Vodafone, Verizon, et cetera, are all very, very keen, of course, on looking at this. I think, unfortunately, to date, if you look at it, most of the data plans that have been focused on vehicle have been around in-vehicle Wi-Fi. And frankly, that's a hard sell to a certain extent because your phone can give you a hotspot. So I think what we're looking at now is that real pickup now of data, because actually the vehicle really can harness and use the data in a more efficient way to actually deliver content that people want, as opposed to doubling up of a service that somebody already has on their smartphone.
Yeah. Okay. Another question we have is around the type of content we're going to see. Is it going to be existing content services like Spotify and Netflix? I know we've talked a bit about this already today. Or is it going to be the car manufacturer curating their own content and acquiring programming themselves? Ivan, do you want to take that one?
Yeah, I think at the beginning, and the most of the requests I'm seeing is, of course, for the well-known services, because I suppose these kind of requests are coming from the consumers themselves because they know about them. But I think when we were discussing this in the preparation last time, it's a different type of a journey. It's a different type of the consummation. But because the end user is not really educated about that, so you don't even know what can be done in a short, like when you're charging your battery or when you're on a short trip. I think most likely the OEMs together with the content generators would have to come up with these new formats, which are specific to the vehicle. But of course, on top of all that, everybody wants to have their favorite Spotifys and Netflix and everything like at home.
Yeah, and a question that I've just decided to add myself, because I'm interested to know, is if a car manufacturer makes a decision over which operating system they go to, whether it's Android or Apple or something else, is that going to interfere with what the consumer decides to purchase? So will they still purchase a car if it hasn't got the operating system that they themselves have on their tablets and mobile devices?
I think most of at least the premium brands I've seen so far, they have their own UI, even on top of the like Android Automotive, for example. So I believe they will keep their branding inside. So actually, for the end user, probably doesn't matter what is at the bottom of what is driving the thing. Other than, of course, the software has to be capable, and the different operating systems, they have different capabilities in terms of the ecosystem. I mean, as far as we are concerned, we support all of them with basically with feature parity, but this is not always the case. So it really depends on the technology underneath, but the user should not worry. I mean, it should just work as far as I'm concerned as a consumer.
It should just work, yeah. Gereon, there's been a question around safety and consideration of this. Obviously, there are still drivers at the moment in cars. How important is it to take that into regard when we're looking at entertainment, and how do you tackle that?
Haley, that's a good question. First of all, I think that experience and safety go well hand in hand. You can address this from various angles. First, to help the driver with paying attention, right, through driver monitoring systems, for instance, will help to avoiding accidents. That's one thing. Pay attention to the road. That's the main driver task at the moment. In the future, that may change, but that's what it is at the moment. And then if you think about the entertainment is key. It's also providing the driver to stay attentive, right? Focus on the road while getting the entertainment. So, but I think key for the whole entertainment experience in the car in the future is going to be also voice, a good voice assistant. Probably if you talk about entertainment as such, an NLU that is dedicated to entertainment to make the search and discovery easy. If you speak to your voice assistant, you want to get good results back in the infotainment area. That's sometimes difficult. If you think about Bruce Springsteen's and the boss, it's the same thing, but the NLU needs to return, or the HMI needs to return the right results for it. Otherwise, the driver gets annoyed and gets distracted, and obviously that can lead to accidents. And I think that's obviously something that the OEM are going to pay attention to in the future.
We've had a question around data. The exciting prospect of connectivity in cars is that the car manufacturer can now have a direct relationship with the owner of that vehicle. Ash, what are your thoughts on data and obviously the requirements around that to make sure that it's not passed on to the other drivers that may buy that vehicle?
Yeah, so data is quite interesting point. So today, more or less, if you read some research report or you talk, there are around 100 points OEMs are collecting that data. The problem is that the user, the consumer is not very aware what is the purpose of that data OEMs are collecting? That's one challenge. Second, if the purpose is clear, so one example I can give about insurance services. So you can collect vehicle driver's driving behavior and vehicle wear and tear data, brakes and how he's accelerating, fuel consumption, and so on and so forth. And these kind of give incentive on a low or high premium on the insurance for the user. So one of the interesting data many OEMs and going forward, and you're talking about autonomous vehicle as well, where OEMs could provide insurances and they will collaborate with existing insurance companies. So that's the one business model coming when it comes to data collection. And according to some prediction, today data point is 100 data points we are collecting, but it will go around 10,000 data points. So you can imagine the opportunities for many app developers, not only insurance, but service providers. For example, repair or any other last mile services. You park in the city, park and ride, and then you take another vehicle mode of transport to get into the city. So these kind of services will drive more and more revenue model. But when it comes to safety, again, the in-app advertisement is not the good model when it comes to driver safety, especially when it is driving. So we have to look into another way for app developers to generate revenue in the car. So it will increase, but the model will not be exactly same as it had been on the mobile phone.
That leading on from that data point, data obviously is very exciting for potential advertisers. And there's been a question from an audience member around advertising as a revenue stream. And I'll open this question to the panel. Is advertising video experiences an opportunity for manufacturers and in-car entertainment, or is it something that you would want to avoid?
I would love to answer this because this is something that we've discussed many times. In fact, I've discussed it with Ford lawyers many times. Because as you can imagine, there's many different things that come through, and it's like, oh well, we can just subsidize it by advertising. The answer to that is really simple, and this was coined by one of my ex-colleagues, Micheline Casey, who used to head up our data stuff, and she was very clear about this, which was, no one wants, in order to deliver very good advertising, you obviously need to allow it to be targeted in some way, shape, or form. So how do you target it? You allow the location, for example, to be shared so that you're able to see contextual, information. No one wants to give up their data so that they can get better advertising. Right? I mean, no one, if you were to ask someone what would they want, no one says, I want better ads, because it's just not something that really computes with people. So I think advertising is an interesting experience for in-vehicle, because if you think about it, radio actually has had advertising for since inception. So people are used to advertising within the vehicle. The question is, how do you do it in an elegant way so that it is not irritating, like those ads, those kind of screens that you see in the back of a New York City taxi cab or London taxi cabs, where it's constant ads and you just cannot find the off button fast enough. That's the quickest way, I think, that if we rely too much on advertising, that it will fall over. I think advertising in autonomous vehicles that are robo-taxis, where it can actually be used in an intelligent way, where the screens are there, obviously the content is there and it makes sense, maybe, but that's at a push.
Yeah.
I just want to add two things very quickly. There is a huge opportunity for advertisement. It's not always driver is watching the content. There is a passengers too, and there will be more seats in the back and more screens. So for them, you can target content which is more relevant and advertisement. Other thing is that if there is a phone connectivity and phone is used, so we are talking about in-vehicle experience, but if you have a phone with you and connected with the car, you are collecting and you are recording data, and then you go offline. So the target advertisement can be made on the phone when customer is sitting in idle time or doing something else. So it's not about advertising, the target advertising right when you are driving, but it could be off driving as well, as long as you have a phone and the content is covered or recorded during the driving and phone is connected with the car.
Yeah, let me add something to this, Haley. I want to pick up on something that Scott said, and I think that's important. I think you need to do advertising in a smart and meaningful way. It shouldn't be too well, it shouldn't be too intrusive, right? If you put up a massive advertisement on the HMI, that's something nobody wants. But I mean, we have a lot of experience doing this on TV, where you promote content, for instance. That's something that actually the driver wouldn't even recognize. And I think that's a very smart way of doing the advertising, and that actually would unlock revenue opportunities for the OEM. And I think that's something that the OEM could be really interested in. So, look, I'm having this screen, I'm having the real estate in the car, I'm having a good platform provider that has all the content. And by the way, I'm not providing the best content to the occupants in the vehicle. I also can get a rev share on it. I think that would be a business model the OEMs would be really interested in.
Yeah.
Well, Haley, one question just to add to that. I mean, let's not forget. I remember when I was living in the UK in London, and I signed up for Spotify very early on in their, probably right around their inception, and they didn't have a premium tier at that point. It was primarily just advertising based, right? So you would listen to you'd listen to some music that you wanted, and then at some point an ad would come in, or 2 ads or whatever, and you'd be able to go back to choosing your music. So, you know, obviously at the early days, there are different ways to present meaningful advertising, as long as you can give people content that they want. And I think we need to play around with that and really get a fine balance. But it worries me if we talk too much about advertising, because I think we can be too reliant on it when it doesn't really work.
Yeah, and I was going to say that from a video industry perspective, you know, we've seen lots of advertising, video on demand services launch now, and clearly there is demand for it. And in the in-vehicle, environment, as someone's commented, actually, you have a really engaged audience, which potentially has the option for high CPMs, because that's what advertisers will like. But that again offers other interactivity with the in-vehicle, such as what you're driving those consumers to. I mean, is there potential to link it to other things in the car, such as, you know, places that they're close to, where they can stop and purchase fast food and things like that. And I know Xperi have a lot of experience in targeted advertising. There is potential, but I get your point as well about having to be very careful.
Yes, we've tried to do that. we tried a project very similar to what you're talking about, Haley, which is we envision this idea of having targeted advertising if people were to provide their data, but it needed to be kind of valuable information that we provide to them. And I got to tell you, it did not happen, because we just didn't get the internal support to say, actually, this is meaningful enough. I think that was the problem.
Yeah,
right.
And you need to keep in mind that we have very strong privacy requirements too.
Yeah.
So you need to make this work in this environment, right? So you need to get the best out of it with the restrictions you have, and that's key.
Yeah. Okay, I think we have 1 minute left. Is there anything anyone would like to answer? I think we pretty much covered everyone's questions. So I think we're done here, and I know that we could talk forever about this topic.
Well, I think the only thing, Haley, to mention is I think the one thing that probably all of us can agree on is that this particular space, year on year, is becoming a lot more interesting, right? Last year, as we said, was the first year we talked about this. This year, of course, we followed on. I'm looking forward to seeing what 21 has to offer, hopefully when we're face to face, because I think by that point, there'll be a lot more. Well, there'll be a lot more that we can talk about, right? Because it's not so hypothetical, but it's actually some really new opportunities. So I think the future is very interesting.
Yeah. Absolutely. Well, thank you, Ivan. Thank you, Ash. Thank you, Gereon. And thank you, Scott. It's been a pleasure to talk to you about this. And I very much look forward to having the same conversation in a year's time.
Thank you.
Thanks, everyone. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.